Between school, your friends, and social media, answers are everywhere. But where can you find the truth? Welcome to the Well StudentCast. We're asking for a friend so that you don't have to.
What's up, party people? We back at the Well StudentCast asking questions for a friend so you don't have to. My name is Brynn, and I'm here with my friend
Ka'eo, and I am so glad to be back with all of you. We have a friend here at our table, and I could not be more excited. I would love for you to introduce us to the listeners and our viewers right now. Who are you? What's a fun fact, interesting thing, whatever you want to say? Your debut is here now.
What's up, guys? My name's Brett Karraker. I'm 28 years old.
Oh, let's go now. Come on.
I'm one of the original Well podcast guests from about 11 years ago. 11
Wow.
So we learned that literally today, that there was an OG podcast before Wellcast and Well StudentCast, apparently. What was it called again, Brett?
It was called Spoutcast.
Spoutcast.
Yes.
And so good. How many episodes did you guys do?
I looked it up on Google the other day, and I was episode 67, so I wasn't as early as I thought.
67, though.
That's a lot of
episodes. I mean, it went on for a little bit. Yeah.
All right, guys, look up the Spoutcast and see Brett's original debut at the Well podcast society.
Exactly. What? The community?
Sure.
Anyways, that's good. All right. Well, Brett, we always ask like some very silly questions, but we have to know, what is your favorite sandwich? We need to find a different question, but this is mine right now.
No, I like this question. Okay, so my favorite sandwich is a turkey bacon avocado, but it's at a specific place in San Luis Obispo.
Okay.
It's at High Street Deli.
All right, I've heard of it.
And it's called the Dutch Punch. So it's on Dutch crunch bed.
Oh, that's
bread,
so good.
Turkey bacon avo, and then it's got like this chipotle mayo sauce on it.
Come on.
It's by far their most popular sandwich. It's worth the drive to even go there for lunch if we wanted to go today.
All right, we'll go today after this episode.
We'll head after. Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, anywhere else, just a TBA.
All right. Yeah. That's fun. Okay,
what's so TBA? I'm sorry.
Bacon avocado?
Oh, I thought to be announced.
turkey bacon.
He's like,
avocado.
to be announced, but I'm gonna order.
Yeah. I was like,
okay. What's so funny is when we have our favorite things, we get so passionate about telling people about them.
We do, yeah.
Like I tried a panini for the first time a few weeks ago, and I've told everyone that I'm like now a strong fan of paninis, and I want to buy a panini press. And
like what kind? Like a pesto panini or?
I literally.
Cheese?
I was at a family's house and they had me over for dinner. It was so sweet. And it was just like turkey and lettuce and whatever on it. But that as a sandwich wouldn't be anything that would be like, wow, I really love this for dinner. Yeah. But that as a panini was like, mind blowing.
It's classy.
I was so excited. So it was just the best. And I've told everyone. But we have a hard time doing that with our faith.
We do.
And so we've had students being like, hey, you guys talk about being a light on campus, but I don't actually understand how to do that. And so we thought that we would just kind of get together, ask that question for our friends today.
Yeah.
Of what does it look like to be a light on our campus?
Yeah, because sometimes they're like, okay, Ka'eo, like, does that just mean that like I just bring flashlights? When they're being really silly, people are like, do I just catch on fire? Do I bring my candle? It's kind of trendy to have glowy
skin right now, so you're just like glowing on
shining
campus.
on campus.
Yeah.
And I think there's more to it though. Because
no, that's it.
Yeah,
that's the answer to the podcast.
Because being a light sounds like we're just passive about it. Like I'm just supposed to exist, and then that's enough. And so I think this is a great question for us to hit about how like no, there's actually steps to this. And so, Brett, I'm really interested because I think you are an alumni to one of our schools here, right?
Yes, I'm an alumni of the Dry Creek Panthers.
Wow,
I have to start off with that because I'm very proud to be a Dry Creek.
Let's go.
Panther.
Come on now.
Went to Alta Sierra and then went to Buchanan High School, and I loved Buchanan.
Oh, we didn't love Alta.
Alta, we can just kind of skip.
Yeah, middle school years.
Middle school,
you're figuring a lot of things out.
Not the best years of your life.
But Buchanan was awesome. Mm-hmm. It was a great time. So I'm excited to talk about that campus.
Yeah,
because I had 2 experiences on that campus.
Oh, wow. Tell us more about that. What does that mean? 2 experiences there.
I think one was everyone has influence on a campus, and you can either be a light or you can shed darkness. And I think for my first couple years, BC, before Christ, I was a little dark in my faith, or dark on campus. I wasn't kind to people. I cared only about sports. I hung out with only one group of friends, and pretty just self-righteous and arrogant. And then God wrecked my world going into my junior year. And then now we're talking about being a light on campus. That's when that kind of all shifted. Especially when one of my mentors at the time had said, Brett, your greatest mission field in life is going to be on your high school campus.
Yeah.
So cool.
Like that's wild to think about. You got a lot of years left after this. And now being on the other side of it, like it's just different being in work.
Yeah.
You know, it's on a high school campus, you've got an incredibly diverse group of people all around you.
Totally.
Different athletes, there's band, there's environmental science, there's theater, there's like so much. And so for my first couple of years of high school, I was blinded to a lot of what else was out there, and just kind of sticking to my little sports group too. So there's a ton of ways to be a light on campus, and I missed out on my first couple of years, but I'm excited to talk about ways we can.
Yeah, well, I think you bring up a good point. The whole idea is I think a lot of our students, and even I remember sometimes even I get confused saying that, mission field, mission work, like evangelizing, share my faith, that's for like other countries.
Yeah.
That's for other states. That or like that's like what my pastor says, you know, that's his job. And then recognizing that we actually know I've been called to do that too, and my mission field is where my greatest influence happens to be, where I spend a lot of my time.
Totally.
And that's our campuses for our students, right?
Well, and that idea that we all have influence, like I think sometimes we kid ourselves into thinking that like, oh yeah, like influencer is like a term that gets thrown out a lot now as like a social media job, but we're all influencing people. In whatever way that we do that, Brett, what you're saying is like you can either be influencing people around you to join you in a positive direction, and following Christ, pointing your arrows towards him, or you can just be passive and be like, I'm just not going to rock the boat at all. Or you can even be an influence in the negative direction and be like, hey, join me in XYZ.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, you have to take a stand at some point. Otherwise, what are you standing for at all at that point?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great point of being like, Brynn, I think both of you guys bring up a good point that like we need to be doing something active for the Lord. And so,
Because we're called to.
well, yeah, that's
right?
what it says in the Bible.
Yeah, when we accept Christ, it's awesome. But let's go share that.
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
Right. I mean, we've got a duty to do. You know, this is our mission field. Let's train hard and go out to battle. You know, you're on the front lines on your campus, and so it's important to take that seriously. You know, our faith we're on a battleground.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of stuff coming at us, especially now. And so stand firm, stand strong, and recognize that you're in a war. You know. And be prepared for it.
Yeah, I think that's probably our first thing. So when it means to like, what does it mean to be a light on campus? I think the first thing you have to recognize is probably we just need to be aware of the fact that that you're going to experience conflict. Like you kind of like what you're saying, like we're going to be at war. You're essentially going against the current. And there is going to be like some obstacles in your way, and not everyone's going to receive that well. And so I think sometimes we kid ourselves thinking that, like, if we share this, they're gonna be like, oh wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That's so good. Thank you. You know, but then recognize that some people actually won't be like receptive to it. Yeah. So we can't give up, right? We have to stand firm, right?
I'm just curious, did you have anything like that? If you went from like, hey, I'm kind of the jock, like jerky guy, whatever, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey everyone, like I love the Lord now, let's do this. Were any of your friends like, dude, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I definitely received like what's going on with you kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I like lost any friends because of it, but I guess for example, like I had a mouth like a sailor, which kids listening, that just means you cuss a lot. And I'm sure there's people listening who are Christians, who are on the campuses right now, who come to the well, who are cussing a lot.
Yeah.
It's easy. People do it all the time.
Yeah.
And that was just like, not that coming to faith is any behavior modification, but it was something that I was heavily convicted by. Like, what comes out of your life or mouth brings life or death. And a lot of what's coming out of your mouth is bringing death, including cussing.
Yeah.
So I stopped cussing, like legit stopped. There was a movie that had come out recently at the time called something like about a fox. I don't know. George Clooney was in it. But in place of a cuss word, he said cuss, which I guess could be controversial. So it'd be like, what the cuss or something. I don't know. And like, it was kind of like a play on words, but like it worked for me. And actually, like a lot of people joined in on that, but it was something they recognized, like, oh, Brett doesn't cuss anymore.
Yeah.
Sounds small, but was very impactful at the time. And then, well, I guess to your question of did I receive pushback? Not a whole lot, but people definitely recognized like something was different.
Yeah.
Which sometimes that is like, even when we talk about what does it look like to be a light on campus, it starts with how like you yourself are walking in obedience to the Lord. So like, when we're talking about being a light, sometimes, yes, that's through conversations directly saying like, hey, this is the gospel. And like, this is like, I love the Lord. And like, come with me and follow me in this. But sometimes it's also, and like the most important part I would say is that your life reflects that you've been transformed by the gospel. And so Brett, some of your being a light on Buchanan campus was people saw like, oh my gosh, Brett has changed. And that's because he's following the Lord now. And so that probably brought opportunities to share like, oh yeah, this is what changed in my life.
Yeah.
But it starts with your heart posture.
Yeah. Well, you say you talked about like one thing about like, like changed some of my like, I'm not cussing anymore. Were there other things that you were like, hey, the Lord's really working in my heart that I'm going to change while, I'm at school or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think my relationships changed quite a bit. I was definitely a lot more intentional and maybe like kingdom minded, or at least I tried to be as much as I could. Because I had a lot of friends that weren't believers also. So I like wanted to start with my core group of guys and girls too. Like the way I treated girls, I probably didn't treat girls in an appropriate way or in a respectful way. And so that changed. They were friends. And then the guys, being more intentional with like inviting them to like I came to the Well student ministry back in the day. It was we got it popping. Yeah. It was legit. We had great leaders. We had great kids. And it was just like that is such an easy thing to invite people to. Yeah. You're busy. You got a lot of stuff going on. You're tired. Just come. Like you'll never regret not coming. Yeah. And it's such an easy way. Like just come hang out. Yeah. You know?
Okay. Oh, that's sort of your story of how you came to faith, right? Yeah. Someone invited you to church.
Literally someone came and was like, hey, Ka'eo, like we're going to play sand volleyball, which I love that we have that here. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, cool. I'll come for the sand volleyball. And then I went and I was like, wow. And then the pastor was talking about something that I think was definitely a heart need for me. And then that's how I became a believer.
And that sort of thing is so cool. Is how the Lord, like, I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves and we think we're so much more powerful than we are. We're like, I have to have the right words and I have to be this like a pastor can share their faith because they talk good, but I stumble through my words. And so I could never be a light on my campus. But like in reality, the Lord's just saying like, hey, walk in obedience to me. And if that's inviting someone to church, like that's great. That's a step and that's you being a light. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a well-formulated
And just to add to that, I think that's a great point. And also when you become a new believer, you will get opportunities, but recognize it takes time too. Like, hey, you came to Christ. You can't just be like, hey, you should love Jesus. I love Jesus. It's like, bro, a week ago, like you were cussing like MFing people all over the place. It's like it takes time, right? You're not just going to fix it right away. Yeah. And so that's why I say like, be kind, be intentional with your relationships. Be consistently, equipping yourself. And then when the opportunities come and pray for the opportunities because God will bring you opportunities on your campus. I promise you, he's got infinite opportunities for you, but pray and seek them out and ask for discernment, when to step in, when to step out. And I remember thinking that though, like, do I have enough information? Do I, can I quote Psalm, whatever. Yeah. Tell your story. Like your one of your greatest evangelistic tools is to tell your story. Yeah. What has God done in your life? Because people can dispute the Bible, and there's a bunch of kids on campus who are a lot smarter than me and could play with the language, I guess. But they couldn't rebuke what God's done in my heart and done in my life. Good. And then you got to live it out too, right?
Well, that's the thing. Yes, it's twofold.
But don't be afraid to tell your story when the opportunity arises, and that I promise you will be enough. Yeah. Tell your testimony.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's cool, I think, with all of this is what we're saying is like you are an evident light on your campus just from saying that you love the Lord, and if you're walking that out. And so things like that, where sharing your story, that's something that you can be processing right now. If you're saying like, I don't feel equipped and I don't know what to say, why don't you process that with your small group and with your life group leaders and things like that and say like, okay, guys, I want us all to process what our stories are and like write out our testimonies and practice sharing them to each other. Yeah. Because when the opportunity comes, if I'm praying for opportunities, I want to be prepared to share my story and I want to be prepared to enter into that conversation. And I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's literally calling out like so many pieces in scripture where it's like, like kind of what you quoted earlier in our conversation that like the world's going to know us by how we love one another. So being kind with one another, that's one way to be a light on campus. Being prepared to share a story. 1 Peter 3:15. We should always be ready to give defense for what we believe in, and to do it, gently and kindly in love. And so I think these are things that the Lord has already called us to do, and so now we get to actually live those out. And I think that requires us to be active, though, and not necessarily like I'm just going to passively let this happen. My youth pastor used to tell me all the time, it should not be a surprise to someone that you are a follower of Jesus. Like they should know. And then he layered that with if you are a follower of Christ on your campus, then you are people's first impression of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so how are you steering that well? Like that there should be some responsibility, not to like put all this like weight on you and all the other stuff. But
no, but it's so real because it's confusing to people. And actually can be more harmful if your lifestyle is confusing and you're claiming the name of Christianity. And that was the most convicting thing for me before I like fully gave my life to the Lord. Was I went to Cal Poly for a year and there was a girl in our dorm and she had said something about how she was going to church. And I was like, oh, like I would go with you. And she was like, you're a Christian? And I was like, she's shocked. Like, because my lifestyle didn't reflect it at all. Wow. And so it was so convicting, right? But I think that is, again, the kind of like piece that we keep hitting on is if your life is reflecting the Lord, the thing we're most afraid of sometimes is to enter into conversation. But even in friendships now that I have, that I've been afraid sometimes to be like, I don't want to be the like Jesus freak and like make them feel weird or uncomfortable in this conversation. But like if they ask me what's going on in my life and they're like, oh, what are you up to? And it's like, oh, like the things I'm doing, like, oh, I'm involved in like this thing in our church. And like, oh, actually you should come hang out with these friends. Like I met them through the well and whatever, we're doing this and we're doing things that are reflecting the Lord's character. Like that is, again, you being a light, but it all starts with how you're walking day to day.
Yeah, that's real. I think one thing that I was like really encouraged by, especially like I didn't grow up in the church. So when I would encounter people who love the Lord, especially moving from Hawaii to Oklahoma, which is the Bible Belt of the South, I remember it was so cool when I would talk to people because high school's tough. There's tough times. Life doesn't actually get easy in high school. But I remember being so like, just kind of in awe on how like people who were actually followers of Christ, how they would handle hardships and like the hope that they had that I just wish I could have and how they would process grief or process conflict or process like not making it on the team. I remember I was so amazed when I remember one of my buddies who was like trying to get on the basketball team, he'd say, yeah, I guess just the Lord has something different for me. And I was like, and you're okay with that? And he was like, yeah, like I trust that the Lord has something probably better and it's just different than mine. And I was like, are you sure you're okay? I don't understand that. But it was like having a conversation with him over time that helped me realize like, oh wow, you have a hope that I want. And I thought that was like incredible. And that was small. It wasn't like he was like Bible thumping me or like trying to be like, dude, like change your lifestyle, man. Like,
and I think that's where a lot of kids are like, they expect something big. It's a small thing, right? It's things like how you respond to adversity. Like if you're a baseball player, you're going to go 0 for 4 at one point. And your teammates are going to look at you as a Christian. How is he responding? It could be in class getting a bad grade, whatever it may be. There's little moments like that where it's an opportunity to share Christ and to be a light kind of inadvertently. And people are noticing it. Like Christians are on watch for sure.
I heard something from some of the girls. I'm not saying it's just a girl problem. We all, I think human nature, we all struggle with gossip, but we had a few girls last year who made like a gossip pact where it was like the three of them were like, this year we're not going to gossip. If we're in conversations with each other and it starts getting gossipy, we're going to stop each other. If we're in conversations with other people, we're going to stop it. And they said that was like one of the most, like, I don't know, clear ways that they saw themselves get to be lights in those circles because it was so against the current of what other people were doing. And just saying something in those moments of like, hey, like, sorry, like either changing the topic or just saying like, hey, sorry, like this year I committed to like not gossiping. And people would be like, what the heck?
Like dang, what?
And it is awkward, right? Like everyone's like, oh, what are we talking about now? This is so weird. We just got called out. But those type of things, people are watching you. And so whether it's in sports settings, in friend groups or whatever, it's those little things over time that people see that are like, wow, something's different about them. We all want that hope.
Yeah, that's really cool. Dang. Okay. So it sounds like we got just understand, be aware of the situation, that it's going to be kind of tough. It might not be. We're in it for the long haul. So being a light doesn't mean that it's instant. It can be, but not. We should be praying for opportunities.
Yeah.
And then 4, it sounds like it's not necessarily so much if you have enough Bible information, but being like confident to know that your story, being able to share your story, what God's doing in your life. And it also sounds like little ways, not necessarily always dramatic, big ones, right? So that kind of sounds like, am I missing anything for what it means to be a light on campus?
I think just one thing I would add is be encouraged to go, like, God has chosen you to go share his message and to be a light on campus. But we may not always see it. Like, this is something I had a hard time, right? Became a Christian.
Yeah.
And this is a lot of people, right? Especially if you're an athlete, you work hard and you see a result most of the time, right? Like, if I'm going to put a parachute on my back and run sprints every day, like, I'm going to run a 4.5 hopefully one day. Wow. Or if I'm on the tee, like, hitting,
that makes sense to me and Ka'eo.
It's
good. Yeah. No,
for all my football players
people,
out there,
make sense.
If you're swimming a bunch and you're a water polo player, like, you see the result of, like, oh, I've got a little bit more endurance in the game. I've put in the work and I've seen the result. Faith doesn't always look that way.
Yeah,
and it's not about you either.
Yeah.
It's,
come on.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm gonna get a little
Let's go.
But I just remember wanting to just, like, see the result. And that was kind of like, I'm not the savior here. Like, I am called to go plant the seed, and doing it for someone said, doing it for the glory of God is enough. That's it. It's cool to see him. Like, I had 3 of my closest friends come to Christ. It's freaking awesome. That's awesome. But a lot of people I didn't see, and a lot of people, some of our students may not see, but plant the seed. God's going to water and grow it. Invite them to Wednesday nights, and they may say no. They may say you're weird. They may call you out on some sin they've caught you in. But maybe once they get into college, or maybe when they face a hard time, then they try out church, like 10 years down the road. I don't know what it looks like, but it's not about us.
Yeah.
It's about doing it for the glory of God, and that's enough. And be encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
a
great
and
point.
we're not owed. That's so good, Brett. And like the idea that we're not owed to see, like, the Lord gifts us in his kindness little glimpses of the fruit that like he's doing in our life and other people's lives, but we're not owed to see it. No. And so that obedience again of just being like, okay, Lord, you've called me. And I heard it said of, like, love people enough to, like, sit in the uncomfortable with them. But, like, just wanting comfort for you and the other person is, like, equivalent to hating them, because that's their eternity we're talking about. And so love them enough to sit in an uncomfortable moment and, like, maybe be uncomfortable yourself, make them a little uncomfortable.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Oh, that's a bar.
That's a commonly said thing in sales, which I'm in, because it's a lot of cold calling and getting rejected and being isolated. And you're not working really with a team. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and then over time it's gonna get better, and you're gonna get in a rhythm, and you're gonna be bringing people to Christ. Hopefully,
that's so cool. That's so good. This has been awesome.
Yeah, I love that. That was really good. Well, is there anything else just for our listeners, or just like last minute, like not really last minute, but just like any last like words of wisdom or encouragement for them? They're probably listening on their way to campus, and so just something we can encourage them with as they kind of head into. The battlefield.
I have one last thing.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Do it together.
Oh, come on.
Like being community that is so big. In Buchanan and all these high school campuses, they've got great communities. And it's much easier to do it with someone else, at least one other guy, you know, or girl, and rather than by yourself. You know, try and you can find community by serving. This is a whole nother thing of, like, being a light in different groups, but I had never been to a theater performance like my first 2 years of high school. I started going to some theater performances, and I met the lead role or whatever, like, and we became friends. Like,
you broke a lot of barriers.
Become involved in FCA, do leadership, do all the things that your schedule allows without you losing your mind, because that allows you to be able to, one, be a light to people who you may not know more, and two, maybe there's a single Christian in drama. And they're looking for someone they can team up with, and boom, now you got some homies to roll with to share the love of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's so good, Brett. And it's funny, we're on the same wavelength, because I think my encouragement was on, like, a little bit on the flip side, but while you're looking for that community, if you feel like you're alone and trying to be a light on campus, that can feel so lonely and hard. And like the amount of conversations I've sat in with students just being like, Brynn, I feel like just so isolated. And like, I know it's worth it, but sometimes it just doesn't feel like it. Like going to school every day is so hard. And I think just like knowing that you are putting your investment into an eternal purpose helps that. Like that is so worth it. But I want you to hear from us. Like we hear that this is hard. We're saying a lot of things that are like best practices and sound great on the table, but doing it every day is really hard. And so we're proud of you guys, but fight for community to help with that. But in the meantime, like if you feel alone, just know that like you're not alone. But it's hard.
Yeah, it is. I think, and then my last, for me, I would probably just say, very related to what Brett was saying earlier, but we're not saving them to ourselves. And that would put us in a place where we feel like we have to be their saviors, and it's just not a place we can be. And so just as you're being a light, recognizing that you're pointing them to the source of light that you get to experience, the joy that you get is not from you, it's from the Lord. And so that's like a big piece, I think, because I remember getting caught up in high school and college, being like, I need to rescue all these people.
Yeah, totally.
And that put me in a really weird spot, and it really kind of burned me out too. And so I would just encourage you. We're not the ones. We're pointing them to Jesus. So
that's good. This was so good, guys. This was so fun.
It was a good time.
We love
I almost
it.
kind of like, all right, so we're all going to go to the beginning right now. Right?
Yeah, so good. No, after High Street Deli.
Oh, that's
though.
right. Yeah, we're getting
Home
that
opener
TBA.
Friday night
We're getting
football
the TBA.
game.
Oh,
Buchanan's home opener Friday night football game.
Oh, come on now.
That's good.
Let's go.
All right, good times. Well, we will see you in 2 weeks. Share this with a friend.
Yep.
Maybe that's
Like,
you being
subscribe.
a light.
Oh, come on. Put them in the comments.
Yeah, that's an easy way to do it.
All right. Well, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Well StudentCast. As always, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about us. For more information about the Well Student Ministries, visit thewellcommunity.org/students.